today. This theater sees many great events, whether it's plays, whether it's dance, whether it's music. And every once in a while we have opportunities that are especially magical and are a little bit more intimate than a big dance show or Heathers or something giant. And today it boils down to stories. And so I thank you for coming today. I thank you for being the great ACMA audience that you always are. We have 2 ACMA storytellers and a little bit more than that. And to introduce this show, I'd like to bring up the stage Plain Rock.
Hi everybody, I'm going to try this without the mic. I think I'm speaking loudly enough. Welcome so much to ACMA, and I want to thank you so much all for coming to this event. It's our 2nd year here. We are Washington County Library Systems Art of the Story. It's Art of the Story is a storytelling festival that happens here once a year, and this is our 15th year. And we bring in tellers from all over the country and also locally to perform events all over the county at all the library systems. And we left some information out there. It talks about all the events in the county, and I'm hoping that you can come to some of the events. I know you're all busy and everything. But I also want to let you know that the finale is here. It's a week from this coming Saturday. On Saturday the 4th, the finale for the festival is going to be here. And all the tellers will be here. It's a 2-hour show. And the person who comes, the winner from today will be there as well. And then we have a story slam at the Beaverton Library as well. And one of the participants from there will also be here. And then we have 4 tellers. One from Detroit, Robert Jones. He's a blues musician and a reverend. He's really cool. And Jasmine Cardenas, she's a Colombian American from Chicago. She's also really great. And there's a couple local tellers, Lawrence Howard and Kelly Hoffman, who will be here. So hopefully you can make that. It's a lot of fun. It's really good. So let's see. I just wanted to mention real quickly, we have some big sponsors. The Regional Arts and Cultural Council, the Washington County groups, Friends of the Library and Foundations all help supply money for this. Pamphlet Media, and also ACMA is a great supporter, so please give them all a big round of applause. Thank you so much to Bjorn, your principal, and Jamie Curl, because they really helped make this show happen, and we really hope to keep doing it. And if you out there watching are interested in doing something like this, keep it in mind, because we hope to do it again next year. We have 3 judges today. They're all accomplished storytellers in their own right. John Wilder, Val Mallinson, and Mike Davini. And they are going to be judging the tellers, and we aren't going to announce a winner because they got to talk it over afterwards. But and I'm guessing they're both winners. So it's we're going to have to pick somebody who's going to move on to the next round. So a bit like American Idol. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking, and to start the show, I'm going to have Mike come up and tell a story. He's been in schools for 30 years. He's retired now, but he's got a story to tell, and he's going to tell that, and then Jamie will come up and introduce the teller. So thank you so much.
My close to the middle. I was 14 when I got my first job. You could do that in Virginia if you had your parents' permission. Golden Skillet Fried Chicken. The arch enemy of KFC in the great chicken wars of the 1960s, hired me as a poultry cutter. It wasn't a glamorous job. You grabbed a half-frozen chicken that was gutted and plucked, you snipped off its tail, and you put it into a counting bin. We actually counted tails at the end of the day. Then you flip the switch on the flesh eater. It was this spinning saw that rose up through a slot in a table designed to separate body parts. You had to wait until it was spinning at about 1,000 rotations a second. Then you made 9 exact cuts. 2 thighs, 2 legs, 2 wings, and 3 breasts. I know, 3 breasts. I never really understood what that 3rd breast was all about. And I didn't want to ask because I really didn't want to know the answer. Now, once you had created those 9 parts, there was something important to do. You needed to check to make sure that you still had 10 fingers. 10 fingers. Now, when my friends in high school found out that I was a poultry cutter, there were a lot of teasing going on and some really funny jokes about it. But there were these 2 guys, they were a little older than me, I barely knew them, and they took to walking behind me. And they'd get up close behind me and they'd go, "Chicken Man!" That was really irritating. I think my generation invented the jerk, and these 2 were prime examples. Now, the job itself was going really well. I got a promotion. I went from poultry cutter to deep fried chicken cook. And then from deep fried chicken cook, I became the guy at the cash register. The manager told me that I had a future in the fried chicken world. I didn't want a future in the fried chicken world. I was already sure that chicken grease had penetrated into my aorta and I was going to die. So I wanted a new job. And I pictured it being a lifeguard. Now that wasn't going to be an easy job to get. My local pool only had 2 openings for lifeguards the upcoming summer. That made things tough. But every time my fingers got close to my nose and I could smell rotten chicken, I got inspired. Now, I knew that the skills I had developed as a poultry cutter weren't exactly transferable to being a lifeguard. So off to the Red Cross I went. I took first aid. I took CPR. I took the Heimlich maneuver. I took a class that made me an assistant swim instructor. And of course I took the lifeguard class. But with all of that, I knew that it really came down to was the interviews. And that's where it was really going to be tough, because the people on the hiring committee had a reputation for never hiring 15-year-olds. But I desperately wanted that job. Now, they set the date for the interviews. May 13th, Saturday morning, 10 o'clock. I only lived a 10-minute walk away from the pool. But at 9 o'clock, I was dressed in my Sunday go-to-meeting clothes, and I was out that door thinking that if I got there way early and looked nice, the committee would be impressed. I was maybe 3 to 4 minutes into my walk, and I spotted 2 damsels in distress. There were actually 2 ladies staring at a flat tire. And I had a hormone moment. My testosterone just shot up. And inside my head I was saying, I'm taking driver's ed. I saw that Fix the Tire movie. I got this. And I volunteered to fix their tire. They were so pleased. Well, as it turns out, it takes a lot longer to change a tire in the real world than it does on film. And you get a lot dirtier. It took me easily 40 minutes to change that tire. And I was just covered in grime. Now, the ladies wanted to pay me. But I went all Southern gentleman on them and said, oh, no, I wouldn't think of it. I'm just so glad that I happened by when I did. It was a pleasure to help. But really, I must be getting along. I have a pressing engagement, and I wouldn't want to be late. And off I went. I got to the pool at 20 after 10. The presentation probably was over. And my only hope was that they hadn't yet called my name to be interviewed. But I got a break. When I came around to the front of the building, everybody was still standing outside. As it turned out, the chair and the vice chair of the committee hadn't shown up yet. So I headed into the building and I cleaned up as best I could. When I came out of the building, there was this adult standing there, and he looks at this car coming into the parking lot. He goes, oh, okay, great, guys, look, they're here now. Everybody get ready to go in. And the car pulled up right in front of me. And I recognized that back left tire. It was my damsels in distress. They got out of the car, and they were all smiles. They recognized me right off. And as they walked by me up the steps, one of them even gave me a wink. Now, the interviews went on almost all the way to 4 o'clock. 30 people were applying for those 2 jobs. 5 of us were 15 years old, all boys. Then there was another 15 boys, 2 of which were those guys that called me Chicken Man. And then there were 5 girls. So around 4 o'clock, the committee gathered everybody together to announce the 2 hires. The first job went to Jennifer Hewitt. She was a 17-year-old girl. I actually knew her. She was a really nice person. And I was glad that she got the job. Then they named the next winner of the job. They broke a personal record for the first time ever. They hired a 15-year-old boy. I'd known the guy forever. He was a pretty good guy. I was glad for him. You know, you don't always get what you want, but I did. The job was mine. And then the head of the committee thanked everybody else for coming and invited them to try again next year. That summer, I saw those 2 guys come into the pool on a regular basis. And every time they came through the gate, I got this image in my head of me standing up on the lifeguard platform, blowing my whistle and pointing right at them. And then I'd go, bah, 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 bah. But I never did it. Until now. Lifeguard students.
together. I actually didn't give either of them much help. I sort of sat and listened because they have it together. Our first storyteller from ACMA is Ashwarya Marate. She is an activist, a musician. She also is a playwright, and she wanted me to remind you she's also very Indian. Ashwarya?
Before I start, I would like to say, Jamie, you were a big help, so, yeah. My earliest memory is that of a man whose existence I was unaware of until 8:30, 2 evenings ago. His face, always out of focus, never more than an inconsistent series of splotches. In this scene, my mother is a mere curtain bearer. She stands clutching the door with a strained white hand, hair half spilled from the knot she was tying at the base of her neck. A rice cooker shrieks. It is jagged, cacophonous, laugh-like to my ears in its conflict. The picture book in my hands lies, forgotten, on a blanket made from my great-grandmother's worn cotton sari. Surprising how I've always considered this memory unremarkable. In fact, it has uprooted, unraveled the pleasant facade of my childhood. The man in the memory, my father, is as much apparent to me as a passerby. But he represents, in startling clarity, a truth I don't know whether I can confront. Our meeting was brief, insufficient for a 27-year absence. My most recent flame, Sebastian, had invited me to his cabin in the mountains to top off the weekend, you know. Well, after this short trip, I decided to end our fling, to return the copper engagement band he slid onto my finger just a few weeks prior. Romantic engagements, as my mother often reminded me, were precarious, fated to end in disaster. Her example was enough to make me wary of all the men I met. Hence, I'd never let my feelings extend this perfunctory infatuation, always remaining 2 steps away at all times so as not to involve myself too deeply. But I digress. On Saturday evening, I was at the wedding reception of a college friend. The festivities had brightened to a painful extent. Guests flushed and woozy on gin tonics and white Russians. Stomachs and smiles stretched gloriously wide. Tables moved aside to create space for dancing, to celebrate the bride and the groom and their union. Servers brought out this decadent Sacher-Torte, air-fried from its roots in Vienna, double espressos and cups of Darjeeling tea to complement it. My father and I sat beneath the arched fireplace, maintaining a polite but awkward silence on opposite edges as we ate. In my haste to finish the slice, so I could exchange pleasantries and leave the tent, I smeared ganache on my jaw. My father reached into his pocket, procuring a photograph, soft around the edges, creased in imperfect quarters. It was a photograph from my first birthday. Tousled hair, 4 front teeth, cloying chocolate buttercream staining my lips and my chin. I snatched the photograph from him, at a loss for words. My mother had a similar version of this image. This should have been tucked into a black album on the 3rd shelf of her living room cabinet. She should have been able to open the album, wistful and glossy-eyed after 3 too many glasses of Shiraz, floating through tranquil memories like she had no better job to do. How had this image found him? Why was it in his pocket, as if he too possessed those very memories my mother kept so closely guarded? But then he said, "You are awfully messy. Wait here a moment. I'll get you a napkin." "Oh, Matthew, there's no need." He buttoned his jacket, and he disappeared into the crowd, much like he had vanished upon learning my mother was pregnant with me, leaving her to fend for herself in a bustling city square. His abandonment had transcended flesh and bone and blood and marrow, had razed her trust to shreds. To entertain such a traitorous man was to disrespect my mother, a rounding slap to her dignity. The anticipation of his return, of the conversation to follow, it made my stomach churn. I finished my tea in one gulp. It burned the roof of my mouth, it brought prickly heat to my tongue, but I paid no attention. My fingers trembled around the photograph as I raised them to my jaw, as I wiped the ganache away. Just then my father returned, weaving through dancers, nodding politely as he passed the groom, a bundle of tissues clutched in his hand. "I'm sorry it took so long. I ran into the groom's father. He's an old business partner of mine." I thrust the photograph at him, too angry to speak, giving him a rocky glare. "I can't do this. I can't pretend," I began. But when he said nothing, I stopped short and I softened. Despite my denial, I noticed how we shared the same nose, interrupted midway by a bump, harsh and elegant, severe in its prominence. And despite my anger, I noticed that our hair, a shade not quite rosewood or mahogany, possessed a glossiness, a slippery quality my mother would always try, in vain, to replicate on herself. "You left," I said. "Is that what Rukmini's told you?" "You say that as if she lied, because she did." I shook my head. "Huh. Next you'll say she was the one who left you." And you know it would be true. I spun on my heel and I stalked away, too angry to speak, but he caught my wrist, which in turn made me lose my grip on the photograph. It fluttered to the ground a yard away, where it was trampled by the bride's thin stiletto. She didn't notice, and veered off in another direction. My father released my wrist, stooped to pick up the photograph. Aside from a missing corner, the damage was minimal, but his face still fell. "This is my only picture of you." I'm sorry. I didn't mean for that to happen. I always wondered, what meeting you would be like. And it's not what you expected, I'm assuming, I said. "Not at all." He pinched the bridge of his nose, exhaled deeply. "I've been to court before, and this is worse." I laughed. For the first time in hours, my shoulders relaxed, my nails unclenched from my palms. He smiled too, and said, not without affection, "You look just like her when you laugh." Again, my mood turned, darkening, swinging like the music did, chaotic. "It's so hard to hate you," I said to him. "Now, come on, Sagarika, don't be a child." My gut twisted again upon hearing the quiet disappointment in his voice. I wished we hadn't made eye contact during the service. Wished that he hadn't approached me as the pews emptied out. My instincts urged me to leave, but for some reason I simply cannot fathom. I agreed to sit with him at dinner. We commented on insignificant things like, oh, the tapenade platter our meal began with, his recent vacation to India, my studies in sociology at Northwestern, our respective plans following the reception. Our conversation took a somber turn when he mentioned visiting the lake in Kashmir where he and my mother met, a lake that had always held an insurmountable mystery for me. And in that moment, I decided I would not leave without a confrontation.
So much for that. Okay, next is Grayson Wright. And Grayson is an activist, she's a golfer, she's a writer, and a future architect.
My family owns a B&B, bed and breakfast for those who aren't familiar with the term. I help out wherever I can, but I love being in the kitchen. My grandma spends hours in there with a pixie cut for her Asian hair, overalls, Birkenstocks, and her signature rose perfume. Some of my earliest memories are in that kitchen. Most are of making my great-grandmother's cooking recipe. I'd run downstairs in the morning, rat's nest her hair, still in my pajamas, and my grandma would stop me and say, "Now, Chili, what's the first rule when working with food?" And I would laugh and reply while already run into the sink, "Wash your hands." My grandma would smile, and I could swear I saw stars in her eyes. I claimed I could crack the eggs, and my grandma would give me a bowl, so when I did get the shell in with the yolk, she could fish it out. I measured ingredients like flour and learned a lot of my math that way. I'm not sure if my grandma appreciated my help in the kitchen. The ingredients ended up on me more often than not, but we laughed. We laughed while rolling the dough in our hands, and we laughed when I clapped my hands, releasing a giant puff of flour into the air. And we laughed when I held my tongue in between my teeth, concentrating on keeping the dry ingredients in the bowl. In the evening, my dad would walk in, tell me to say goodnight and throw me in the shower. But I still smell like sugar and vanilla and the lingering grease from my great-grandmother's opium cookies. Oh, opium cookies. Despite its name, there are no drugs in the cookies. They got the name when my aunt shared the cookies with this gay couple that was staying with us. This was before the legalization of same-sex marriage. I liked them. They were funny, and their love was tangible, so unlike my parents. Anyway, they took a couple bites of the cookies before declaring, "These are so addictive. They should be called opium cookies." Since then, we've never called them anything different. Now, we live in a small town, and these cookies are town famous. My grandmother gets orders all the time. If the phone rings, you better have a notepad because 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a cookie order. My grandmother gets calls from the sheriff and deputies with greetings like, "Hi, ma'am. This is the police department, and we'd like to order 5 dozen of your sublime opium cookies. And that's just how it is. August begged for the cookie recipe, and my grandma would just smile, shake her head, and go back to the kitchen. My grandma could make those cookies in her sleep, and she rarely measures the ingredients anymore. Like I said before, we live in a small town, but we are between 2 hot spots, New Orleans and Fort Knox. I have met some interesting people over the years, but none so as interesting as my grandmother. And despite how close I watch her, I have never been privy to the secret ingredient. My grandmother claims it's magic and love, and when I was younger, I believed her, thinking her a witch. She was using her talents to make the best food in the world. My grandma still claims it's magic. And my mama shares this look with grandma, like my mama knows the magic is real. A few summers ago, I ran down the stairs to the kitchen. My grandma wasn't there. I heard voices upstairs, and I ran into my grandmother's room. My parents were already there, and grandma wasn't breathing. My grandma died on the summer solstice. I said it was a coincidence. Grandma said it was her time, and my mama said that grandma's magic has returned to the earth. My mama always said I looked like grandma, think like grandma, acting like grandma, loved like grandma. So I took up the slack in the kitchen. And I could feel a presence hovering over my shoulder like a shadow in Peter Pan. I made batch after batch, years of muscle memory, letting my mind tune out, be numb, and forget that grandma wasn't there. The first batch came out, and I forced my mama to eat several. I offered them to previous guests, and they all said they couldn't tell the difference. I sighed in relief. I didn't have the secret ingredient. I didn't have the secret ingredient. I've kept my great-grandmother and grandma's legacy alive, and I recently had my picture made, and I swear I saw galaxies in my eyes, but it must have been a trick of the light. But later, I felt tingling in my hands, in my chest, and in my head that extended to my tools and ingredients. Grandma was right. It is magic in love.